please rise and remove your headgear and join me in the pledge of allegiance, please? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I will read the warning for this commission meeting. There will be a meeting of the New Hampshire Fish and Game Commission on Tuesday, April 16th, 2024, at 1 p.m. at the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department, 11 Hazen Drive, Concord, New Hampshire, 03301. The public is entitled to attend all commission meetings, and when recognized by the chairman, the public may speak on any item on the agenda. The chairman reserves the right to limit public comments to the extent necessary for orderly conduct of the meeting. Start out with the action items. Approval of the March 19th commission minutes. I entertain a motion.
I make motion to approve the minutes for March.
Been moved, have I got a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the commission minutes of March 19th. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Green.
On page 5 of the minutes under the legislative committee, the last paragraph, it states in closing, Commissioner Price reported relative to Commissioner Green's recent discussion relative to coaching and the lack of severe penalties. That whole paragraph is actually not what came out of the legislative committee. It should be saying that the legislative committee meeting, that it was decided that a member of the legislative committee would work with Fish and Game on the coaching. It was not said that the director will work with Fish and Game and report back to the commission. And I know there's confusion on who that member of the legislative committee would have been.
So I'll need something to correct it from somebody.
I recall that Director Mason asked to push this off till June or July with staff to develop something. Is that your recollection? Scott?
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to get past the legislative session
Yeah.
and then jump into this. And we would have to get something put together, because Ray, I think we're gonna need legislative change, right?
For what?
Legislative change.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to put something together, I'm thinking, what, by September, Marty, to get sponsors in the House? But we can go later, we can go a lot later than that if we have to
Yeah,
get some
yeah,
sponsors.
because it's an election year, so,
Right, that's,
Right, but that isn't my
November.
correction. My correction is that
Oh.
it's stating that the director of Mason agreed to work with law enforcement to create legislation to include jail time, blah, blah, blah. That was not what came out of the legislative committee. The legislative committee was that a member of the legislative committee would get with Fish and Game.
yeah,
No, I recall Scott saying that, you know, he needed to talk to his law enforcement staff about this, and that when you got back to us in June or July, that was after you would meet with the staff.
I want our minutes to verify what was done. I have listened to the tape, I have requested the tape, and that is not what was said. I was at the commission meeting. I mean,
Yeah, that's what the tape said, but that's
Right.
not what happened in the legislative
Right.
committee meeting you're referring to.
I'm just asking to get changed to what happened in the legislative committee meeting. The way this reads is that Director Mason will get with Fish and Game and report back to the commission. If that's the way the commission wants it, then so be it, but that was not what we discussed in the legislative committee meeting.
Commissioner Howard.
in the legislative, meeting, I recall that discussion, and because we can't direct the work of staff, I remember asking Scott if working with law enforcement makes sense, and he agreed to that. But he later confirmed after we get over certain things in the summer, so it does need to be we want the commission involved in that, and that's what I think you're trying to do, and that's what we had talked about. But I recall asking Scott permission before directing, his staff.
Okay, so you want the,
Well, that's what our legislative committee minutes we just approved about an hour or so ago reflect.
okay, leave it the way it is then.
Ray has been very vocal, Commissioner Gray has been very vocal about this on numerous times. I think he, if I understand what you're trying to do, you're just trying to represent it, that it is really, in partnership and driven by the commission to make this change. Is that what you're trying to do? Make sure that
Yeah, 2
spirit
months
is
ago, this
captured?
commission,
Yeah.
and I don't wanna get into arguing this. 2 months ago, this commission made the decision that the commission was gonna enter the legislation on top.
Well, we always do it that way. It comes through the legislative committee and it comes to the full commission after
Okay,
staff works
leave
on
it
language.
the way it is then.
Do you have a proposal for language for
No.
Tanya to update?
No. I'll leave it the way it is.
So what does the commission wish to do?
I make a recommendation that the commission has somebody working with Fish and Game on the project. But the, you know, the commission is leading this.
That's what we've always voted
Yeah,
on.
Yeah.
that's what this is about.
But you're saying the legislature committee said that the director will work with Fish and Game and then come back to us.
Well,
Oh.
don't we usually rely on staff for recommendations, and, you know, they're the ones that would, law enforcement would be best to help craft something that we could then have input on.
Do you really want to get in the whole discussion on it?
I recommend that we take this up under old news,
Yep.
and I will, at that time, I think a clean motion needs to be made as to what this commission wants to do about this issue.
I agree with that.
All right, let's put that off until old business, I guess, what did I say, old issue?
So the motion on the floor will deal with like,
We'll deal with under old business.
No, the
The
motion
amendment.
To approve the minutes.
So now there's a motion to approve the minutes first and a second.
That's the motion that's on the floor,
Yes,
right?
correct.
Yep. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, stand approved. Thank you very much. All right, we will go on to consent agenda. The following items have been grouped together and noticed as consent agenda items to expedite action on routine matters, which may not require public discussion. Commission members may remove certain items if a further input is necessary and discussion is deemed necessary. Number 2, approval to accept the following donation totaling $2,065 made to the search and rescue account in memory of Mark Lamont of Freedom, New Hampshire, for use by the Advanced Search and Rescue Team. Health Services Team at the University of Connecticut Foundation Incorporated, $250. Helen Boudreau, $200. Curtis and Kathy Hogan, $100. Weber family, $100. Jeannie and Bruce Wilhelm, $100. Cheryl and Troy Wheeler, $100. The Gortons, $100. Rick Bang, $100. Lee and Ann Chick, $100. Paul Kenny, $100. Ruth Sunberg, $100. Liz and Ben McLaughlin, $100. Maria and Brad Jacobs, $100. Jane Armstrong, $100. John McNamara, $100. Ray and Suzanne Heath, $50. Chris and Rebecca Thatcher, $50. Deborah McKinney, $50. Chris Bailey, $50. Karen and Vitek, $50. Bradley Wolf, $50. Brad Wolf is $40. Karen Hayes is $25, for a total of $2,065. 2B, approval to accept a donation of $100 from, boy, I'm gonna have fun with this one,
Phaedra.
Phaedra Saltus What's the last one?
Yeah, Kimsky.
That one there, yep. In memory of Mark Lamont, for deposit into the fisheries habitat account. 2C, approval to accept a donation of $40 from Jonathan and Sylvia Clark of Walpole, Massachusetts, in memory of Bennett Gove of Walpole, Massachusetts, and Temple, New Hampshire, to be deposited in the small gifts and donations account. Approval to accept the donation of $50 from the National Trappers Association for deposit into the Operation Game Thief. 2E, approval to accept a donation of $2,000 from the Meredith Rotary Club to be utilized for inland fisheries management, especially for the Last Lake program. 2F, approval to accept a donation of $50 as a thank you to the staff for assistance he received from Alexander Burke of Pittsburgh, Massachusetts, for deposit into the small gifts and donations account. 2G, approval to accept the donation of $20 from Zachary Randlett of Pelham, New Hampshire, for deposit into the small gifts and donations account. Approval to accept the donation of $50 from Daniel and Beverly Wolf of Newbury, New Hampshire, in memory of David Powers of Andover, New Hampshire, for deposit into the small gifts and donations account. And 2I, approval to accept the following donations totaling $40 for the deposit into the small gifts and donations account to be utilized by the inland fishery. Joseph Parrott of Minor League Bassmasters donated overpayment for a fishing tournament. Merrimack Valley Bassmasters donated to 2 fishing tournament date conflicts, $20, for a total of $40. And entertain a motion to accept items 2A through 2I.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second. Been moved and seconded to accept items 2A through 2I. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, stand approved. Thank you. Informational item, financial statement. Everybody got a copy of from Kathy Labonte of the financial statement and the third quarter, I believe it is. Everybody got a copy of that?
Yes.
Is Kathy here?
No, she had to step out, she wasn't.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Kathy's document that she delivered to us? Is she gonna slide back in, did it know?
I don't, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, we'll move right along to, the other informational item, and that's the update on the Atlantic Menhaden rule change to amend the commercial season start date and establish a state water and commercial fishery quota set aside to better manage the state quota established by the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission.
Oh, she just stepped out.
Excuse me?
Renee just stepped out.
Oh,
She is coming back.
she's gonna be the one that's gonna plan to.
Yeah, she's here on Sherry Patterson's behalf.
I'll go see if they can.
There you go. Next report, come back up.
Here she
Excuse
comes.
me?
She's coming.
She's coming.
Apologies, I'm multitasking today. All right, so I think everybody has in front of them draft regulations. So this is just an informational item. This is an ASMFC species. And the changes that we're making are to help us better manage the state of New Hampshire's commercial quota allocation. And there are 2 changes that are here. The first change is the season start date. And there's no presentation for this, there should be the regulations in your packet. And we will be having a public hearing on this next Tuesday at 6 o'clock in Portsmouth at the Urban Forestry Center for the public comment. So the first change is a change to the season start date. The reason for this change is it is in congruence with our neighbors. So managing the Menhaden quota can be a little bit tricky. Our goal is always to minimize the number of quota transfers. We can request quota from other states who have it. So fish send over to us if we need more. We've done some changes at the commission end of things to try and make that a lot less. But this puts us in line with the state of Massachusetts opening date, so we're not a safe harbor kind of for a lot of fish coming into New Hampshire from outside of New Hampshire's waters and eating up a lot of the quota really early in the season. So allowing us to spread it out throughout the season and allowing our fleet to get better access. Which leads me to the second change in this, which is a set aside for our state waters commercial gear. So our state waters gear is very restrictive and very specific. So they're basically, you cannot catch tons and tons of fish per day with the regulations that we have on the books within the 3-mile limit of New Hampshire's jurisdiction. But fishers outside of that jurisdiction in other states around federal waters can catch hundreds of thousands of tons of fish. So what this does is allows our fishery, which is very small scale, access to the fishery when the fish are available. Instead of having a little bit more restriction there, it allows them to get access to the fish when they're in New Hampshire waters, which they are when they feel like it, and in pulses. And that sets that quota aside. Our quota currently is a little over 6 million pounds, so this is 500,000 pounds set aside. It gets returned back to the fishery on October 1st, whatever hasn't been utilized that calendar year. So those are the 2 changes that we wanted to present. Like I said, we're going to public hearing next Tuesday, and that fishery should be starting out fairly shortly. I'm happy to take any questions, and apologies for running into the room last minute for you.
Anybody have any questions? If not,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay. Committee structure. Legislative committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We met this morning from 10:30 to noon, and I'm proud to say we did not run into any staff lunch hour at this time. We had only 2 items that we actually took votes on. I make a motion on SD 539 to withdraw our prior opposed position, changing it to a no position, as the bill language has changed to not materially affect New Hampshire Fish and Game owned dams. The vote was 5-0 in the committee.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded to take no position. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Are opposed and taking no.
Change
Right.
from opposed to no position.
Right. To Senate Bill 539.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Hart?
Clarify, we don't take votes of no position, so the motion is to remove the position that we had
How
before.
would I remove the position? Everybody understand that? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Stand approved.
Thank you. The bulk of the meeting was spent on a discussion regarding FIS 303.12. I make a motion to amend the final proposed rule that went to Jelcar to revert back to the prior rule language regarding 303.12, placement of traps.
I'll second it.
Been moved,
The vote out of committee was 3-2, passing 3-2.
been moved and seconded to, well, you heard the motion. Any further discussion?
There was
Can
no
I
second.
just have a clarification?
All seconded.
Which one this is? I don't really understand where we are in this one. Is this in the packet?
303.12.
Yeah, it's in the legislative update. It has to do with the FIS 300 various sections.
Okay.
And so, after extended discussion, the committee voted to revert back to the original language because it seemed too confusing, the new proposed language.
And what was this in regards
she's
Oh,
been.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Trapping, placement of traps.
Okay.
Placement of
Was this the
traps.
one we discussed about placement in water?
Yes, yes. And I've asked Commissioner Cavaney and DeVoe to field any questions since they're the experienced trappers on the committee.
I thought that originally we were, well, why are we no longer supporting language change? I guess is my
We
question.
support, this piece of it is new. It was not part of the FAS changes that we
Yeah.
had already voted on. This little piece was added in later and was going to go through, and we asked if we could talk and discuss it. And we felt like it was not meeting the needs of law enforcement to make it universal. It didn't clarify much, so we asked if we could step back and maybe entertain it later, discuss it later.
Okay.
Any further questions?
So I was one of the two that did not support it, and so for the other commissioners, I just want to share why I didn't support it. So this was an FIS tweak that was not presented to the full commission previously, but I've since learned more about it. And so it was presented as a clarification for law enforcement because the way the FIS was not clear. So I did not support peeling that back because I was supportive of clarifying the law enforcement, clarifying it for consistent law enforcement practices. So I did not support that in the committee.
So just to clarify, and I apologize for not being legislative here, because I'm sure you talked about this at great length.
Yes, we
The-
did.
The version in which we are now gonna push through, is this the version that law enforcement wanted?
Oh, that's
That's my understanding, so I think that
Colonel, do you want to answer that?
We were looking, and I apologize, because I'm part of the problem, I think. We were looking to clarify an FIS rule regarding placing traps on private land, because I had a conflict within my own staff on how to properly enforce that. After a meeting with the Trappers Association, we came up with what I thought was a compromise that would work, would clarify it. I think I circumvented Marty. I think I'm responsible for that, because I said, when can we push it forward? Marty said the rules are on right now, we'll do it right now. And so at the public hearing, we mentioned there would be a change, but the commission never saw the change. I did not know that.
All right.
And so the commission wanted to take a vote on it, and that hasn't occurred yet. So I think we decided to stay on this for now, and at least put it before the commission before we went forward. So the rule going forward will have the old renewal of existing FIS that's been around forever. It does not address the clarification. I think we need to still, at some point, meet to do that. But
And
this-
Can
what
I
would
just
be the
clarify
timing of
what the vote is? So what is in the rule now
Is stay.
is the clarified language that helps law enforcement.
Okay.
So a vote that passed in committee removes that clarifying language and keeps the old version.
Okay.
So I don't like double negative kind of thing, like I just wanna make sure,
Yes.
if you vote in alignment with the recommendation from committee, you vote to peel back the clarifying language and stick with the old way.
Okay, and just to clarify, when will we get an opportunity for law enforcement to get a more accurate version of this? Do we have to wait, is it 2 years now?
No.
Okay,
May I?
that's,
Chair?
yeah.
So I disagree with Commissioner Hodgson. I think that what law enforcement was asking for is still not solving the problem of making it consistent with what is in, you've got FIS and you've got RSA. And the changes that were agreed to are still confusing. They're not, we didn't want them to be equal, and they never would be equal. So we just felt like if there was gonna be a change, we should talk about it a little bit more. I felt this was a little bit rushed. It just all of a sudden came about and was happening. And I would hope that we can talk about it in greater length in the future.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Oh, I appreciate everybody's effort and help me there.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Please raise your hand. Thank you. Making me important. Thank you.
Anything further, Commissioner Price?
No, but other than, I think we will continue to tack another half an hour on to our legislative committee meeting to avoid going into staff lunch time.
Good. All right, Governance Committee, Commissioner Caven.
Yes, we did not meet, nothing to report.
Okay. Commissioner Hodgson is not here for sustainability, he got called out to legislature over in Maine. Resources and Infrastructure, Commissioner Gray.
It has not met.
Not met. Public Engagement and Education, Commissioner DeRosa.
We have not met as well.
Okay. Seacoast Report Committee, Commissioner Capone.
This past Saturday, the Fish and Game, in conjunction with New Hampshire Commercial Fishermen Association, conducted the annual coastal fishing gear cleanup. We had 106 volunteers show up for this cleanup. We gathered more than 2 dumpsters full of various fishing debris, so it was pretty successful. I want to thank all the volunteers who happened to show up. So that was a great success. I want to thank Renee for coming up with the situation on the Manhattan changes in the law on that. And on May 6th, there's going to be a public hearing on Amendment 27 to the lobster amendment to discuss overages on trap tags. In the past, fishermen were able to gather 10% in excess of their trap limits in case they had lost gear. That's all going to be discontinued, so how many traps you can fish is the only amount of trap tags you can be able to get. There'll be no overages. If you do lose traps, you'll have to make special requests to within Fish and Game or to the National Marine Fisheries Service to get your overages on trap tags. So that's all I have to report.
Good, thank you. Lakes Management Advisory Committee, Commissioner Price.
We did not meet
Did not meet.
last week.
Rivers Management Committee, Commissioner Hodgson is not here. Search Committee, Commissioner Hodgson.
Sure. Clarity on the closing date of the position for recruiting for the executive director role is today. So accepting applications through the end of today and postmarked by today. So after that, we will have a meeting to review applicants and decide who will be invited for interviews. We have probably, I think the number's about 44 applicants so far, with a large degree of diversity throughout there. And I'm confident that there will be resumes that come from that pile that will be selected by the committee for interviews. So stay tuned, but we are moving ahead, and again, today is the last day of closure. I think I previously reported it as April 15th. There's a quirky thing that the state doesn't like to close positions on Mondays, so it is closing after today.
When's your next meeting?
I will be sending an email to commissioners to have that on April 26th at 2 o'clock.
3 p.m.?
2 p.m.
2 p.m.?
Yep.
Anybody got any questions of Commissioner Hodgson on that process? Old business, Commissioner Green.
Apparently there's been some confusion over who's gonna handle legislation on the trapping. So, I mean, not the trapping, poaching. Sorry, we had a long discussion on trapping. Is on the poaching, so to get it clarified, I am going to make a motion that a member of the legislative committee gets with Fish and Game to discuss the poaching in New Hampshire for an increase in fines to include jail and prison time, hopefully on a point system, and to include not just on hunting, but on hunting, fishing, marine resources, poaching of all our resources. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now we've got a motion and you got a second. Now we'll open it up for discussion.
Can I amend it?
Excuse me?
Can I amend it?
You can, oh yeah.
Can I say Commissioner Green versus a member of the legislative committee? This has been Commissioner Green's,
Baby.
Passion.
passion, thank you. And I think he will represent it best.
Say that again? I heard my name.
You got volunteered.
You're the member of
Yeah.
the legislative.
I think we should be so clear that it's you. You've brought this up multiple times. You're very passionate about this. I think it should be you.
Okay?
So
That I will get
My
with Fish
discussion.
and Game and report back to legislative committee.
You have to agree to the amendment.
Is
Is
there
there
a
a
second?
second amendment?
Is there a second to the
I'll
amended
I'll
motion?
second.
Commissioner Temple seconded the motion.
Can't be that.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment, which simply states who the member of is gonna be, is Commissioner Green. Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, stand approved. Now you have to approve the motion as amended. You know the motion, it's been amended, all in favor of, any discussion on the amended motion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, stand approved.
Glad we got that cleaned up.
Okay.
Thank you for volunteering.
Any other old business? Commissioner
Oh, yeah, I have one item.
Kane? Yes.
So, Big Dam Hole Pond is in my county, and I just spoke to Diane, she come today? Yes, she, the campground for Big Dam Hole was closed, and Steve may have some input into this. Prior to that, it being sold to a large corporation, the family generally allowed public access into that stocked pond. The new company is charging $15 if you want access to Big Dam Hole. And we have had prior discussions in past meetings that we should not be stocking ponds that do not have public access, or the access is barred. You know, the gate's closed after our truck leaves, type of thing. So I had a call from a constituent that lives on the lake. I have not returned that call. But I think we should adopt an approach that if an actor is gonna act in a way to block public access to public water that we stock, we should not be stocking that water.
Is there any access to that body of water? Car talk, carry on?
Not really. There's two church camps on the lake, the one we hosted the meeting at. They don't bar access, but there's children, it's a children's camp most of the summer, both those camps. They really don't want strangers coming in, you know. Like, I know the people that run those camps, so of course I could bring my canoe down there, or kayak or whatever. But, it's not publicized, it's not in the Delorme, it's not, you know. The only place you can reasonably access the lake is on the Ospey side, and now paying $15 to the campground owner.
Colonel, isn't there a law that says we can't stock?
It's got to have no public access. I thought this, I'm with Commissioner Price, I don't think that's appropriate if we stock one that's locked down to the public, but it does require it to be locked down to the public. So if you can't access it anywhere, then you could stop stocking. If there's access allowed anywhere, Deering Reservoir comes to mind, where they limited the access, but access was still allowed, we couldn't stop stocking it.
Right.
So I just think we have to be sure, careful that there's no access. If there's no access, that's simple, you don't do it. If there is limited access, I don't think by law you could stop it. I think there's nothing to prevent us from stopping it if we decide to, but the law doesn't support it, I guess.
Does public access mean free access, or in a case like
It
this where
doesn't, it
there's
doesn't,
public access, but you gotta pay for it?
it doesn't distinguish that, Director. I would say that if there is a, you know, my interpretation of that is if I can get on the body of water, it could be stopped. So I don't know if they have a gate and they limit access, that is locked out to the public. If they have other places around the lake where they can get on it without special gates or bars limiting that, then we would still stock it. I've dealt with this up north, as you remember, on a couple ponds, and it had to be gated and limited for me, not allowing me on the lake. If it allows you to go on the lake, then that law won't apply.
You do have to go through a gate.
Excuse me?
And you do have to go through a gate and pay $15 to put your boat in, use their launch.
But if I showed up with my canoe, I couldn't carry my canoe down to the pond and put it in.
Not through the RV site.
But are there other sites you could?
Steve has some.
Steve,
There's one spot, the town of Ossipee has a right of way to the dam between Big Dan Hole and Little Dan Hole. So you could theoretically carry a canoe on the Ossipee town right of way to the dam to get into the pond. However, anyone that's been on Big Dan Hole Pond with more than a 10-mile-per-hour wind, allowing people to go on that lake with a canoe with bigger than 10-mile-per-hour wind is a public safety issue. And believe me, there would be anglers that would do that.
That right of way, I know that right of way, and it would be quite dangerous to carry a canoe or a kayak. It's rocky, you
Well, I
have
only
to
bring,
come out onto the dam.
I'm sorry, if you want me to wait to public comment, I can.
yeah, go ahead though.
This is a loophole towns are using. So Silver Lake in Madison has one boat launch. They now charge $100 fee per year to use that one power boat launch. However, they have 3 what I would call canoe or kayak launches on the northern end of the lake, and they're using this loophole to be able to charge $100 to those of us that have a power boat and want to use the large lake. So this seems to be something that may need to be addressed. I don't know whether it's legislatively or by rule down the road, because to me, that's not fair. The only way you can really fish Silver Lake for lake trout and salmon and rainbow trout is with a big boat, is by trolling. And they are prohibiting, licensed anglers from having access to Silver Lake to be able to catch the fish that are stocked by Fish and Game. So, as the Colonel pointed out, it's a very gray area, because yes, I can take my canoe to one of the launches at the north part of the lake to get into the lake, but I don't want to be on Silver Lake with a wind that's more than 10 miles per hour. That puts me in danger and in jeopardy, versus if I had even just a 14-foot lund and I was trolling up and down the lake, you'd be safe to do that. But it is something I think that we should look into that's happening with some of these towns.
Sounds like it's not an isolated water body issue. It sounds like it's multiple water body issues here by the time.
Right.
So it sounds like something that the department needs to look at and come up with possible legislation to address it.
Commissioner Greenwood, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, and with the Colonel, when we went through the Deering Reservoir issue that started, was it 3 years ago, Kevin?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
The Colonel and I did a lot of research on the actual law on whether or not we can stock or not stock a property. When we were done with the law, it was as long as even one person could get access, free access, we had to stock the property. Now, what we did up at Deering Lake, and I'd recommend Commissioner Price to do the same here. I went up with a CO, and it was a CO that has 2 little children. And I asked him, I want you to drive completely around Deering Reservoir. And when we're done, I'll tell you my whole reason of being here, but I want you to think of bringing your kids fishing. We drove around Deering Reservoir. There was no access. All the roads were marked private roads. The only access was right in the entrance to the reservoir, where the town had put up a kiosk and was charging everybody to go in, providing they were a resident. If you were a non-resident, you could not park. And the only way that we found that there was a possible entrance was the dam itself. And we all agreed we weren't gonna take little kids walking up along the dam. But the way the law read, if one person can make access, we could not stop stalking it. And the way we got it straightened out was we just let the owner think we were not gonna stalk it. And they did away with the kiosk, but that ended up with a long thing with DES. But if there's any access, we cannot stop stalking.
I think this is probably something we should put on the legislative committee radar and take a look at this, because it is more than just one or two lakes. And I think it's gonna get worse. As more people come and they post their property and restrict access, I think it's gonna become worse.
Diane?
Yeah, and I would just, it is an issue on several lakes. We have dealt with it in several ways. To add to Ray's, we've contacted towns, we've been doing that continuously. And in some cases, it does work out positive. At Deering, they did take down signs. And right now at Loon Lake in Freedom, I think it is, was the other one that had some language on their website that was limiting access, and that's now been removed, and that discussion is has led to the public being able to utilize the area again. So it's a conversation that we work on, but it is absolutely becoming an annual event, that there are water bodies, as changes in ownership happen, we've been losing access that has been normally public.
I learned in my old patrol, I had one place that as soon as I said, well, I can't stock it anymore, well, that changed things pretty quick.
Yeah.
They wanted us to keep stocking, so that alleviated the problem.
Yeah, and we play that card. That's
Yep.
exactly what we start with. We're not doing it anymore. If we're not gonna, this is a public resource, and you need to provide public access as a large entity.
Yep.
And so if you want us to continue utilizing public resources, then you need to open it up, so.
It's becoming an issue, especially 2 weeks ago, Marianne, we lost 7 miles of Sahuarita Hill.
Yeah, access is a huge problem.
So Commissioner Price, you're gonna have your committee look into that?
I think it's appropriate that I think we need a statute that's very clear, that if there's no public access, or public access is barred at a future date, then we're gonna see stalking. I think it's that clear. And we'll probably have to come up with a definition of public access. How do we define that? It's certainly not climbing over a dam right away, to put your canoe in a lake.
I mean, if you have a pond or a lake that's owned privately, and all of a sudden they turn around and say, hey, no more public coming on here, I don't feel we should be taking the public's money that's spent on the fish to put into what ends up with private fishing. That maybe it is legislation that we should work on.
Mr. David?
If I might ask this question, and Diane, you might be the person to answer it. Looking at this problem and thinking about where we might be led in this discussion, if there is a public body of water that basically, using Dan Hole as an example, big Dan Hole, has an association that says, fine, we don't want you stocking this water, we're not letting the public on it, we're gonna go buy our own fish. Do we have any control over that?
If it's private property, no.
So if it's a,
So,
but if it's a great pond,
We do.
Yeah,
it's a public pond.
it's public.
if it's a great pond, yes.
So if they wanna go buy their own fish, just because they have a strong lake association that they have locked the public out of accessing, are there any controls over them stocking?
We permit that. So the stocking through a private entity is permitted by us. So depending on what the circumstances are, depends on whether or not we approve it or not. So there are controls, for sure.
So, for example, if they wanted to come in and stock a species of fish that's not found around here, we would frown upon that, we would say no. If they were stocking, let's say like bass into a trout lake, that would be something we would probably say no to. Your question, I think, is, these folks wanna, kind of maintain their own fishing hole, and they're gonna stock trout into a trout pond.
Yeah, I mean,
We
that's.
haven't been faced with that question, I don't believe.
Right, that's a really good question, because as a great pond, we can manage it, but stocking is, I mean,
But I think it would be hard for us to say no if they were gonna do something that we would do
anyway,
I
yeah,
think that would be,
yeah.
I'm not gonna say that it would be illegal for us to do that, but I think that would be a PR issue for us.
Yeah, that would definitely be conflicting, because your management is one realm and your stocking is another. And if it's private property, they do have the right to request a permit to be able to stock it. And Scott's right, if there's not any reason for us to negate, biologically to negate it, or some reason enforcement or whatever, then we would not negate that. They would be able to stock it. I don't know how we wouldn't approve it, put it that way.
Mr. Chair, I'm hoping that if the legislature committee reviews this, they'll at least take a quick look at the access onto Lake Seneca.
Yes.
You know, that's a concern. We have a town up there on the north end of the lake that you've gotta be a resident to get a sticker to park. We know that, at least our own people, the state park people, don't really like big boats into, the state beach, which we know there is extremely limited. You could put a canoe in there. And we know on the south end of the Lake Newberry, there's private access down there, but you can't make it available to the fishing public.
The department also opposes the access of the state beach.
Yeah.
Because the access would be through the only, smelts pond in Brook. We're afraid by continuous dredging there, and we believe we would have to dredge there on a regular basis, we might alter this, spawning habits.
So we have a lake with several thousand acres that is extremely limited. Getting back to Ray's concern about a child walking around or down a trail or something, you wouldn't want to leave a child holding a boat at the Sunday Harbor in a heartbeat. And, you know, they do provide some parking and maybe transportation a mile away or so over in the village itself. But I'm just hoping that if we look at this on a broad perspective, that at least let the minutes show that. I'd certainly like to see some activity there.
It is a very broad question, and it goes way beyond anything we've even started to talk about. The next question is, where does the money come from? We do not have a lot of money to procure fishing access, which is something that, like we do with our habitat program, we have a lot more money in our wildlife habitat program, which secures hunter and trapping access. We don't necessarily have the same resources on the angling side of stuff. So there's some issues there. Going back to boat access, the fee for registering a boat is the same today as when the original law was passed in '95. Land prices have escalated, so our purchasing capacity, we're basically at the point now where we're having a hard time maintaining the access that we have with the money we have. So, financial as well as the other thing. But Ray is right, as the last 10 years at least, we have seen a major change in private attitudes towards allowing access. There are a lot of places where people have fished for years that is no longer available. People allow folks to pull offside the road and park and go down the river and stuff like that. It just doesn't happen as much as it used to. So, it is a ongoing problem, which is also an educational issue and things like that.
And it not only affects just the fishermen, this is affecting even people that don't fish, somebody with a kayak or a canoe, that, you know, if you wanna take your kids canoeing, they're making it where, like, it's a town resident only, or you pay to go on.
And, I mean, the other issue that we face quite a lot, and I'm saying Garrett here, the state has not increased the number of state beaches, I think, in a long time. Obviously, the number of folks that we have swimming has increased a lot. In some of our boat accesses down here in southern New Hampshire, you quite often have folks that are swimming at those boat accesses, which technically is a violation of our funding through the federal government. So, we have to enforce, no swimming at those locations. So, there are a lot of aspects to this that come from different angles.
So to just wrap that up, I think we'll put this on our legislative committee radar, and if the director can give us the staff support to flesh this out, I think I don't know if we could do it in rules, or we have to go to the statute, but that's something we would, Marty's saying statute. So, but I think it's gonna be worse. I know on the Saco River with all the COVID people coming in and purchasing land, that restrictions for fishing on the Saco have gone quite a bit. So it's happening, and I agree with Commissioner Green. It's gonna increase. It's gonna keep getting worse. And that's part of our our statutory charge is public access for recreational use. So I think it actually goes right to the heart of the commission's responsibility.
Yeah, your committee look into that.
Okay.
Any other old business? New business? Anybody have any new business?
Yeah, I've got a quick question for the director. Is it possible for us to get these reports for surrounding states if they had them done?
If they're willing to share, I guess, yeah.
Is that
So we don't have access other than to our own, I believe. So
Do we have
go
regular-
ask surrounding states.
Do we have regular communication with surrounding states that we could ask them?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
GPS it. Google it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that would necessarily, do we publish this on our website?
We have not yet.
Will we? Is that normal practice?
No, we don't have a normal practice.
Okay.
I think this would be very instrumental to the Senate committee that was formed under, I think it's Senate Bill 489, the one Senator Waters sponsored, because this is some vital information to go into funding.
All right, yeah.
So, I was actually gonna bring it up in my
I
report, but
figured
see,
you
now
would.
you jumped the gun. Yes, this is the final version that we've finally gotten back. This is a national survey that was done in all states. What we did here in New Hampshire is we increased the amount of money that we paid in order to not increase the number of questions, but increase the number of people that the questions were asked to. And what that does is it tries to increase, it's the wrong way to say it, but I'm gonna say the correctness of the results, or the validity of the results.
Stability of data.
Yeah. So that's what we've done. I'm gonna have Randy, who is a staff member that spearheaded this, so he's gonna, I just wanted to give it out to everybody so you can take it home and read it, and then Randy will make a presentation at the next meeting.
Is there, do you guys have access to the raw data or only this final presented form?
We have access to raw data, or I'm not, I don't know if he has a raw data, but we certainly have a lot more tables and whatnot than I would have enough. So,
Commissioner Cavanagh, did you wanna bring up, lake issue, your water skiing issue,
I could, yeah, this can be pretty brief. Swansea Lake, again, I'm sure it's something that everybody.
Commissioner Green, do you have?
He's laughing at me because he says it won't be brief.
I'll put the clock.
Hit it. I've listened to him a lot. He's my friend.
About to hear a presentation.
With respect to Swansea Lake, and I reported at the last commission meeting, we had a meeting here with Marine Patrol, and they were gonna get back to us. And I did get an email that had actually been communicated to Major Walsh, and then, and I'm sure, Colonel, you saw the report from Marine Patrol.
Yes.
And then it was forwarded a copy to me, which I believe you also, Chairman Stoll, received a copy of. And it was a copy of last year's permit, not the current permit. However, the message was pretty much that nothing would be changing immediately, but they would be engaged in a discussion with the person who holds the slalom permit. That is really all I have to report on that.
Find that hard to believe, but okay.
Thank you.
I'll call you, Commissioner Green, with anything that comes to mind after this, so I don't want to leave you out of the loop.
There goes my dinner.
Any other new business? Seeing none? Commissioners report. Commissioners report on their activities as it relates to Fish and Game Commission duties and responsibilities. This is an informational item only. Any commissioners got a burning desire to say something great that they've been doing other than normal procedures? I kind of figured she would. Commissioner Hodgson.
I just want to share, last month, the end of the month, what was it, 29th, maybe it was, I went to the waterfowl season setting hearing. It went really well. It was really engaging. There was a good amount of turnout from the public. It's a good opportunity to hear about the waterfowl research and tracking. We had approved the money to spend to buy some GPS backpacks for some mallards, so it was interesting to see that data presented. There's a nice map and interactive video that's shown. Last year, a member of Rockingham County had reached out and joined the hearing and provided feedback on requested veteran waterfowl dates as aligned and as approved by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So Jessica Carboni, the waterfowl biologist, and Andy Timmons at the time took the feedback and they engaged with the constituent. My constituent was super appreciative. It spoke very highly of both of them on how engaging and collaborative they were. And this year, the new proposal included those proposed dates. So I thought it was a nice recognition and the hearing was well done.
Mr. Temple.
Yes, I'm not gonna talk about waterfalls. Okay. I'm gonna talk about
You allow it tiptoe around it.
That's it. But maybe for a future agenda item, could we begin to have some dialogue at some point? Maybe the commission would agree with me about license fees. I know, Scott, you just mentioned motorboats haven't been changed since 1995, 30 years, coming up with the same registration fee. Same with hunting, fishing, other license fees to participate here in New Hampshire. I don't know how the commission feels about it. Maybe nobody wants to touch it, but it would certainly, in my mind, warrant some sort of a discussion of where we are and why we're there.
Kathy did a good thing just a month or two ago
Yeah.
on the licenses in at least New England states.
Yes.
And if I'm shooting from the hip here, but I think we were even with them, and sometimes we were even more expensive than they were.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
That's true,
yeah,
yeah, that's true. But,
Might be something for your strategic planning committee. I know you're still busy doing your strategic plan, and did I mean, is that the right name for the committee? Okay. But to me, that is all about financial soundness and whatnot. It might be something for them to bring up.
Sustainability and strategic.
Yeah.
As far as boat fees go, those go,
yeah.
that's set by, transportation. That's where, just like your car. But I will be the first, I have a substantial fishing boat, and I think I paid $85 this year to register it. I mean, I think, you know, you can afford a bit more if you can afford an expensive fishing boat. And, you know, if it goes to access, you know, the director just said about access, you know, having the money to maintain the accesses we do have.
The safety sets that, so, you
Yeah.
know.
so anyway, that was just a comment that I think, and I know we're gonna have a new fish hatchery coming on board, and I certainly don't know the performer, if you will, on what it's gonna cost to operate that. There's some general numbers out there, but will we have enough money going forward in the next 5 years or 10 years to be able to operate and maintain the way we want? The second thing I wanted to point out is I did get a letter from a constituent, and what I'll do is I'll send it down to Tanya, and she can share it with everybody, about a rabbit hunter over on the western part of the state who lost his hound, rabbit hound, to a bobcat. And got the hound out, got to the vet, and there was really no saving of that rabbit dog. And I know bobcats can be a touchy subject. Obviously, we had a lady stand here in front of us a couple of months ago that was attacked by one. And fortunately, I guess her husband was close by with a shovel and took care of things, and it took things into his own hand. But I don't know where we are on bobcats, but I wanted to share that I did get a letter in the mail about 2 weeks ago describing the situation where his rabbit dog was taken by a bobcat. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have anything? I don't know if this is the appropriate place or not, but this is the second time I brought it up and nothing's happened the first time. That plaque back there, right by Diane.
That's gonna take some serious
Excuse me?
research for us to update that. It was behind when I came here.
That's behind quite a while, but I think it's very valuable. All it is a plaque that has the commissioner's names on it and when they served. You guys don't get paid a damn thing for sitting here, other than your mileage, pedal your butt from where you live to here. And I think a simple little recognition on a plaque on a wall in this great hall would be way overdue. So Director,
I've asked for it to be done.
Thank you.
We have staff members working on it. But as Tanya pointed out, it is gonna be a time-consuming just to come up with a list, because as you pointed out, it's been a long time. Tanya, how long have you been here?
36 years.
So it stopped being updated quite a while ago.
Looks like 2008 was the last one on there.
when is it, Diane?
2008?
But that's,
2008? That's 15, 16
Yeah, I
years
don't
ago.
know who was, the person who was in charge of updating it obviously has left, so,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll have to.
Okay.
The list of commissioners going back to 2008 is in.
now you have to go back before that, because that's a commissioner that got done in 2008. But if you had somebody that served 20 years before that and got done in 2009, you see.
Yeah.
That's when they got done? I thought it was when,
Well,
they were just.
probably both is what it would have.
No,
People
it's the
start-
time period, he's right, director's right, it's the time period of when they served.
So you were serving for 20 years, and then you retired in 2009, your name's not up there, even though you started 20 years before.
Right.
But if you get done in 2008 or before, then your name's up there. So it will take time to sort through it.
It's on our radar.
Yep.
I think it needs to be done. I think these people need at least that little tiny recognition.
Where can't you get the list from the state? Through the blue book,
Red book, yeah.
the red book. I'm colorblind, you know?
He is. Okay, director's report.
Sorry. I spoke before the New Hampshire Auto Dealers Association, which also represents the New Hampshire Snow Machine and ATV Dealers Association, concerning the snowmobile accidents that we've had over the winter. I believe I reported out to the commission, we had seen an uptick in fatality accidents, basically due to poor weather conditions, poor trail conditions due to the weather conditions. Also with quite a few of the folks that were involved in these accidents had not much experience. Also attended the New Hampshire Wildlife Federation banquet down in Manchester. Took a day off and enjoyed the eclipse from home, and then spent the rest of the evening enjoying watching cars drive by the farm at about 5 miles an hour. It was unbelievable. The really interesting part is that just as soon as, and I apologize, I don't know my eclipse terms all that well, but just as soon as the full eclipse got over, so we were still at partial eclipse going the other way, cars started showing up. It was amazing how quickly that road filled up, and then it just kept going and going and going. But for those of you that didn't travel north, you really did miss something that was kind of special. Sportsman survey, y'all have a copy of it, so take it home, take a look at it. And as I said, next meeting, we'll have Randy give a short presentation. Wild New Hampshire Day is Saturday, so it'd be great to see you folks there and bring your families. It should be a fun time. Nicola, you got anything you want to add on Wild New Hampshire Day?
Weather's gonna be good.
Weather's gonna be good. Hopefully just a little bit of cloud cover or rain for my taste. Should be a good turnout. Mark has always told me that it is the largest free public event in the state of New Hampshire, and we usually run somewhere between 6,000 to 8,000 guests that day.
8 is sort of average, yep.
Okay.
10.
What's that?
It's up around 10.
Oh, yes, we go all the way over the I'll be attending the Northeast Directors Meeting starting Sunday, so I'll be gone for most of the week next week, but I will be available, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Any questions of the director? Did not thank you, director. Time for the hearing of the public. If you wish to address us, this is your time to do it. Please stand up, state your name, and go to the microphone over there. We are starting to get into the 21st century, the 22nd, whatever the hell it is. And we are recording, and we're going to be videoing here shortly, our meetings. So, yes, ma'am.
Joan O'Brien from Amherst, New Hampshire. I just wanted to respond to Commissioner Temple's conversation with the person whose dog got killed by the bobcat.
But my license was checked by Officer Ben Lewis, and I will say, what a fine, outstanding officer. I was proud to actually have him ask me for my license. And very knowledgeable, very friendly, and I was just proud, Colonel, to have him as one of our officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
intervention. I also want to say something about the bobcat issue. When that woman was attacked by bobcats, I did a little research. That happens in every state. That happens in states where they have hunting, trapping of bobcats. So hunting and trapping is not gonna stop that. Just leave the bobcat alone, or you're in for another great fight from us. About the menhaden too, I just had a question. What do we feed the fish at the fish hatcheries? Do we feed them menhaden? I'm asking the director of that question.
Diane?
It's a biofeed company from, actually their distribution is out of Maine, but are there menhaden in the food, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I'm not sure, I know there's shrimp in it, I can double check for you.
Yeah, and that's an issue that I have a hard time finding an answer to, because the stocking issue is abhorrent. We should not be doing it at all, unless it's to save a species, but just to provide a great hunting experience, a great fishing experience, where the fish are jumping in your boat, whatever happened to a challenge. But then on top of that, you're gonna waste menhaden that are very much needed in our oceans, and you're gonna waste them to feed your stock fish. So, and I have had problems, Diane, finding out exactly what that feed is. You just don't seem to wanna come out with it? What's the problem?
I can get you that information.
Yeah, well, I've asked
absolutely.
before, and I
I'm
have the same
sorry,
issue.
I didn't
Nobody
see
seems
that.
to know what you're feeding the stockfish.
Yeah, I can take a picture of the bag, so that's not a big deal.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
That's where the ingredients are listed.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it would be something you would know. You know, you don't know what you feed your stockfish. It's ridiculous.
I am not up to date on the ration.
Yeah, you've only been here 4 years, I guess. You
No,
should
it's
be.
just, I know a lot about feeding animals,
Yes.
and this is a pre-mixed buy that we do. We do not mix our own ration anymore.
You
So-
probably feed your dairy cows.
What's that?
fish. You probably feed your dairy cows and use fertilizer too.
You can feed a ruminant,
That we need in our
fish.
oceans.
You can feed them fish, you can feed them urea because they have the capacity to build protein in their gut.
And the other thing is you're increasing the menhaden catch, I guess that's what you're recommending? Oh,
No.
you're
No.
decreasing?
We are not increasing the menhaden catch.
Okay.
We're
Well,
just
that's-
changing the measures within the season, but the catch is staying the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good news. Thank you.
Anyone else? One? One twice? Anything else to come before this meeting? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, we are adjourned.